I don't know if I got interrupted there. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us as we journey through space and time, deep into the heart of ConnectWise RMM, studying policies and packaging. Our captain on the ship today will be David Allen Notko, and I will be your Scotterator. Should you need to chime in and say, hey, we can't hear Notko, or if you have a question, please reach out to me in the questions panel. Without any further ado, I turn it over to my man, Notko.
Thank you very much, Scotty. I hope everyone can hear me clearly and I'm coming in nice and clear. So today we are going to be talking about policies and packaging. And let's go ahead and start by taking a look at today's agenda. So on today's agenda with policies and packaging, we're going to start out first by, of course, locating the policies and packages. We kind of need to know where they are in order to start working with them. After that, we'll identify the policy types that are available, and these were the policy types that were available at the time that this presentation has been created. I know that we are doing a lot to ConnectWise RMM, and we're constantly creating, innovating new things. So if you go and look in your system and you see that, oh, Notko didn't mention these policy types. Again, this is at the time that this presentation was done. After that, we'll be creating a new policy. We'll have a business case that will pertain to this new policy that we're creating. So we'll have a somewhat of a purpose behind this policy and what it will pertain to. When we create a policy, we will then create a new package. And a package is what's going to help bring that policy to your endpoints in ConnectWise RMM. And of course, we have a package then. We need to deliver that package. And there are certain settings in RMM that we'll be looking at on how to deliver that package or where or what level to deliver that package at. So our business case is you've acquired a new client with unique office hours starting at 7 a.m. and ending at 4 p.m. It allows you to start patching their systems as soon as 4:30 p.m. Since no users will be present at that time, you can reboot systems immediately when patches are applied. If you start at 4:30, then you need to reboot at 4:35, you can go ahead and do that. Despite those unique hours, standard communications still apply. So with a unique patching policy and package, you can administer patches at a time more suitable for this unique client while retaining standard communications. I know for myself in the past, when I tend to patch systems, you want to usually do it outside of the normal office hours. You don't want to do it during the day or while they're working on the systems because you can't have your customers' PCs rebooting on them in the middle of their workday. That would be very frustrating for them. They'll be calling you, going, hey, my system's restarting. It's not a good time for everybody. So with this particular client, though, we can get our patching done as soon as possible, starting at 4:30, give it a 4-hour window, and have them patch on their off time. But we'll look a little more into that in a bit. So first, let's start with locating the policies and packages. What and where are they? So first, talking about what they are is your policies define values for multiple settings. We all know that all endpoints are not created equal. You're going to have a bunch of settings for those workstations that you need to define. And a policy in ConnectWise RMM can help you define those different settings or those multiple things you need to do in RMM. So a policy is just that. It is what you are setting up for your RMM systems, and it is the different settings that you're going to be adjusting or setting for your endpoint systems. Then when you have that policy set, you're then going to have a package, and the package is the delivery mechanism for that policy. That's what's going to help you get those settings out to your different endpoints in RMM. And as I briefly mentioned before, there's different areas where you can deliver that package to for your endpoints. So, and that's really it for those. So now that we kind of know a little bit more about what they are, where they live in RMM. So we have our AutoBros professional technology RMM system here. And we'll just take a quick little zoom in here on the navigation panel on the left. And we'll find that under the settings menu here, you'll find your packages and policies listed here. And that's essentially where they live in the RMM system. So now we have the different policy types. As I mentioned before, is in RMM, when this was made, that we have 3 different policy types we're going to be looking at today. When we click on the policies link under the settings menu, this is the page that we're greeted with. We can see here, we can see here that we have our policies listed over on the left, and then we have kind of a preview of what that policy is doing on the right. So with the first policy highlighted, we get more information about what that policy is doing and the different settings that apply to it. And this whole menu is scrollable, so if you don't need to go in, you don't need to go into each policy on the edit screen, for example, to see what it's doing. You can just scroll down the list and you can get a glimpse as to what exactly this policy is set to or what it's doing in the system. So for our business case where we're going to start patching the systems at 4:30 in the afternoon, we're going to go ahead and add a new policy to set those settings on our endpoints for that certain client. So I'll click the Add Policy button, and we're brought to the new policy screen. Under the screen over on the left, you'll notice that there is, let's get our pointer right here. There is the category that we can pick, and right now it's just devices is all we had there. And under type, there is 3 different policy types. We have our communicator, OS patching desktop, and OS patching server. When we select communicator and enable the communicator policy, this is the different settings that we get here. We can decide if we want certain aspects turned on and off. So if we want them to be able to bring up the help desk chat and chat with someone on the team, we can do that. We can give the customer at the endpoint the ability to create tickets, look at their system information, contact details, and more. You can control a lot of different communication settings with the communicator setting policy. This is in the business case that I mentioned where we can start patching at 4:30 in the afternoon. We don't have to notify the customer about any kind of reboot or anything going on because they aren't there. But since they're getting the communicator settings in a separate policy, the standard communication settings still apply. So I don't need to make a communicator policy for them because our standard communicator policy still applies to this client. We want them to be able to use the help desk. We maybe want them to be able to create tickets if they run into any issues when they come in the following day, or any other thing we want them to be able to click on here, whereas going to a URL or any kind of custom thing we have set up. After the communicator policy, we have our 2 patching policies here. We have our OS patching desktop and OS patching server. You can see these 2 policies except for the Mac updates section. Under the OS patching desktop, we do have the off capability to turn on Mac updates. This is just a toggle. It doesn't have any additional settings when you do turn this on at this time. So The only other difference is really that's it, is the name of the policies or the policy types of what they are. When you turn them on, you get all these other options available listed here, and you can decide what best fits for your client or your customer at their location. Not everyone is created equally, so you may have a client where you could decide that you want critical updates turned on for everything and regular updates turned on, but you could have another client where critical updates is turned on and approved and ready to go, but regular updates, you want to go through that manual approval process. So you may set that to where you only approve it, and then it gets deployed after you've approved it. So those are 3 different policy types at the time that this was created here. And our next is creating a new policy for this unique client. As I mentioned, is properly managing devices is a sound policy. You want to be able to have a policy that fits the needs of this particular client. So to get started with this, on the same new policy screen, I've selected the OS patching desktop because we're just going to be affecting the workstations for this customer. You'll then want to give the policy a descriptive name. In this case, since I'm making this for a particular customer, I'm going to put the customer's name in here as the policy name. So that way I know what it is, or if my colleague Scotty comes in and takes a look at the system, he'll know that this policy is meant for the Breachins pen testers client, and this is going to be their desktop, their OS patching desktop policy for their system. So now I'll go ahead and enable the OS patching automation. And that, of course, will open up all the settings that we've seen before on the system. Now, I don't have any best practice in place for this client, or as far as maybe any of your clients that you might want to start patching. Again, your settings will vary from client to client. We will have a patching webinar later on next month where we can get more in depth into these settings. So this is just an example. Don't take any of these settings to heart, or this is how I should be configuring my policy. This is just the example I'm using here. So once I enable this policy, I'm going to go ahead and set all my different settings here for patching those desktops. And then further down the list, I can go ahead and choose how I want to set up my schedule. Since this is going to follow or start at 4:30 p.m., I can go ahead and set that accordingly. So under our download and install, we have settings of immediately or at a scheduled time. And you can see when I pick at a scheduled time, it's going to go ahead and by default pick a time of 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. Usually that is a good time that fits everybody, but we can go ahead and when I click on that, I get a little menu like this that opens up, and I can choose the time that I want to start patching their system. When you do this, you are set to a 4-hour window minimum. It does not allow you to go beyond or less than that 4 hours you have to set there. So that 4 hours is the minimum setting that you can put there for that window. I've decided on this particular policy that I'm going to start downloading at 1 p.m. and between 1 to 5 p.m. This allows them to work on the systems. It will download in the background without interrupting the user. And then when time comes at 4:30 to start patching, they can have the patches already downloaded and ready to go for their systems. Again, since there will be no one in place at the customer during this time, I can go ahead and have the reboot selected for immediately, so I can have that reboot happen right away. Once we get beyond these times, the system will no longer reboot. So if they start installing a patch, and if it finishes after this 5:30 p.m. time, It's not going to reboot until our next window. So then in turn, we also don't need to have the notify user when the system's going to reboot. Since we're going to reboot right away, I can go ahead and take care of that and without having to interrupt anybody. Once we have our policy set up there, we are going to click on save. And after you click save, you are brought back to the policy screen. And here we can see the name of the policy, Ulbricht & Bregen's pen testers, what type of policy it is, and who last modified it and who created it. This is going to show all that information in the system. So if you or if one of your colleagues is looking in the system and they see a new policy in there and they go, I don't remember creating that, and they can look over here and see, oh, I see that global communicator policy, Scotty created this a little while ago. I can go ahead and ask him about that and what settings he's put in there, or I can simply click here and take a look on the left at the preview side and see what settings pertain to that communicator policy. So it does keep a good accountability on here if you have someone that is going in and creating new patching settings on the system or new policy settings on the system. So we have our policy established. Now we need to create a new package to get this policy to the endpoint. So from our settings menu, we're going to go and select packages now. And we're on the packages page. Much like the policies page, when we have a currently highlighted policy here, or a currently highlighted package, excuse me, you can see that we get a preview of what that package is doing over on the right. So we have the Pizza Pete's HQ desktops highlighted here, and we're going to get a preview of what this package pertains to. Much like before, we're going to click the Add Package button. And we're brought to the new package screen. Here again, we'll give the package a meaningful name. I'm again going to use the name of the client since this is aimed for this particular client. I know what this package is going to be doing. I know what the policy is going to be doing for this package. And then over on the right, I can go ahead and expand the devices menu here. And then we have our policy that was created earlier, our Ulbricht & Bregen's pen testers policy. You can move this over to the package builder, and that's a simple drag and drop. Now you want to keep in mind that you can only have one policy type per package. So if I drag over this OS patching desktop like this, if I drag over another one of these OS patching desktop policies, such as the example desktop patching first one or the second one, if I drag that over, it's actually going to replace this policy that I created earlier. You can't have two OS patching desktop policies under the same package. They can only contain one of the policy types. Now the agents at, or the endpoints at this site are getting communication policy sets from another package. So I don't have to drag over a communicator policy, but had I created a unique communicator policy for this client as well, I could drag that over and add that to the package. And then I can apply this package, say, at the site level. If they are getting policy settings from another package at a different level, we'll show a little bit later how the system can handle conflicts between that. So once I have my policies assigned to the package, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And I'm brought back to the packages screen. You can see now with the packages on the packages screen that I have the package applied here, and the devices that it's applying to is this policy right here. So you may think now that, well, I've got the policy in place, I have the package in place, great, this is getting delivered to the endpoints. Well, that's not the case. We actually still do need to do another step to deliver this package. So there is 5 different levels when it comes to delivering the package with your policy settings to your endpoints. The first level is factory. This is all of the out-of-the-box settings that come with ConnectWise RMM. This is where all the settings start. The one following that is default. This is where you as the partner can start to define some of your settings on the system for your endpoints. To do a default package to deliver everything at the default level, when you create a new package, if you didn't see it before, you do have a slider here for default package to turn that on to make this a default package. And the default package delivers to all the devices in ConnectWise RMM unless you have another override going on. And we'll show that again in a little bit. The next level on that is site. This is where you also have an option to deliver the package at the site level, and this would pertain to our particular business case that we're working through here. So in this case, when I'm on the packages page, I can click the sites tab or sites button right here, and here we have the different sites listed for our endpoints. You can see over on the right if there is any overrides, and if there's currently any package or anything delivered on the site level and who it's assigned by. So for our case, I'm going to select the Ulbricht and Bregen's Pen Testers site. And then once I have that selected, I'll click the Assign Package button. And we'll get the Assign Package to Site or Sites window opened up here. I'll select the package that I want to assign. This is the one that contains the policy that we created earlier, and I'll click Assign. And we get a confirmation that the assignment has been added successfully. You'll see what package has been assigned to the site now, who last assigned it and when, and if there's any overrides taking place at the site. Next, we have policy group. This is also something that is on the packages page as well. There we go. When we click on policy group, we can create a new policy group here. Here I have OS patching desktop policy group, and under that is my own Windows 10 patch policy for several different devices I have set up here. So whether we add a group or if I hit edit, the screen we get is very similar, where we have the assigned policy. There's the name of my policy. And in this particular case, I'm looking for anything that contains Microsoft Windows 10 Pro. Maybe I have a client that has, for whatever reason or another, and I know they shouldn't, but maybe they got Windows 8 machines, they got Windows 11 machines and Windows 10, but I only want to care about or work on the Windows 10 machines. I don't want to necessarily mess with the patching with Windows 11 yet. Maybe I'm not comfortable doing that, or they don't want those systems patched yet for whatever reason. So what I can do is I can go ahead and put in a different filter here, look for all my Windows 10 machines, and I can add more criteria to this filter as well. So I can click add criteria and decide that if I want to maybe look for a particular site name or machine name or anything like that, I can go ahead and do that. You can see currently there is 4 devices matching this current criteria I have in here. This is looking at all of the systems that is across the whole, or all of the endpoints that is across the whole system in our RMM setup. And finally, the 5th level is the device override, or the device itself, where we can go ahead and override or change the policy settings. From the computer screen on ConnectWise RMM, I can go ahead and select a device here. And when I open it up, I can then go over to the settings section, and we can see the different policies that are applied to this machine. If I open one of those policy settings, we get a look at what this policy is doing to this machine. And to do an override or anything, I can go ahead and click edit and make any changes that I need to make to this policy. So if for whatever reason, if I kind of want to pause patching on the system, maybe I have it off for some reason and I don't want to apply any patching right now, I can come in here and actually toggle off the OS patching automation. And then the system I know is not going to do any patching. When I do that and click save, we're going to get a red indicator here showing that this policy is overridden now and this machine will not patch. This will go back to where we were on the packages page where we had the site assigning happening, and you'll see that there will actually be an override listed for that particular site wherever I've done this override on the system. So in this case, I think this machine was Edu Workstation 1, and that is under the Edu Automate site. Then it will show that there's an override happening there, and that machine's not going to get particular patching settings. So with those 5 levels in mind, as I mentioned before, is what happens if there's a conflict between the two. If you have a conflict of package delivery, you could have 2 systems kind of fighting over settings in here. So we do have a package hierarchy in our system. As I mentioned before, is factory is owned by ConnectWise and ensures that all partners inherit consistent value for each available setting. It's basically our out-of-the-box settings. This is what you get as soon as you get the product. Everything within the product, here's how we have it set, and you can go ahead and have at it and get started with simple out-of-the-box settings. This isn't something that can be changed. This is kind of like things in the background or internal to the system. So if you do want to make any changes or change the default behavior, you can start with the default package. Highest level of the partner hierarchy. This is the highest level that you guys can see. So any value for setting defined at this level will be inherited by all the lower levels. Unless in our case, we're doing a site override, or we're assigning a package at the site, I should say. So this is the second highest level of the hierarchy, and any value for a setting defined at this level will be inherited by all those lower levels here. So if we apply certain settings here on the site level, and we're not changing anything else in policy group or device overrides, then those settings will go ahead and apply to the policy group and apply to the device overrides part as well. It's going to go down to the devices and apply to those systems. So of course, following that same idea is the policy group, second lowest level. So that earlier policy group we looked at, where I'm looking at all the Windows 10 machines in the system, that is where I'm applying certain policy settings for those machines. And then finally, we have the device overrides. This is considered the lowest level for the endpoint. So this is where I can go in and turn patching off on the system. Maybe I'm going to have it down for maintenance for a time and I don't need to be interrupted by Windows updates for fixing the system. I have to get a certain application on there. I need the system to not be interrupted or rebooting during that time. So I need to make sure that install goes smoothly. I'm going to go ahead and disable patching for them so it doesn't reboot on me when I'm working on it. Okay, so some key takeaways for this is policies and packages. They, of course, live on the settings page from the navigation menu on the left of ConnectWise RMM. We identified the policy types at the time of making this presentation. There is 3 of them, which is the communicator, the OS patching desktop, which contains the Mac patching capability, and the OS patching server, which does not contain the Mac patching capabilities. We created a new policy fitting that site schedule. We then took that policy and assigned it at the site level for that particular client, so their systems will start patching at 4:30 in the afternoon rather than waiting the typical 12 to 4 or the default settings of our other systems in RMM. You then deliver the policy via package at the site level. So we've taken that policy now, got it in a package, and we have that package being delivered at the site. But you want to remember, of course, is the package hierarchy. If I need to override those policy settings, I can do that with a policy group, or at the device level itself on a particular device, I can go in and change those policy settings so that machine may not patch, or I may need to get a machine caught up on patching. So I want to approve all the patches and get everything installed as fast as possible. I can go and do that too. All right, and with that, we have time for questions. And I see we did get a few in here, Scotty.
Caw-caw! I've got one in particular here that I've been looking into on my end. This question is about where can we find information on what patches apply during an install window and if something did not run due to any particular reason. Couple different places we're going to look here. First place I'm going to start is to say we're going to go to a device detail screen. So go to Devices, Computers, and click on any particular computer.
Let's go ahead and do that on here.
And then when we click on the OS Patching tab, down at the bottom of that tab, you're going to have a list of patches that are missing or installed. So here you can see patches that are installed. This doesn't tell me specifically during which particular install window, but here I can see patches that are installed. To address the question about where can I see failures, one place we can go for that is tickets. If any patch has failed to install, it will generate a ticket. So it's not there on this particular device, but for example, if we went to tickets on the left nav, there are tickets listed in there that are going to show us patch fail install.
It's going to kind of take its time today, sorry. Oh, there we go.
And then what I did was I went to company queue, I believe. Not completed, I believe, or new, either one.
Let's give new a try here, see what we got.
And here we have OS patching, patch installation failure. So here are tickets that get created when a patch fails to install.
And I'm just hovering over to show that preview. I'm not clicking on anything, so you could probably do the same in your systems too, where you can read out the whole thing without having to click into each and every one.
Another place I can go if I want to get a little bit more accurate timestamp information is under reports. And then expand patches. And go to patch update reports. From here, you're going to select a site. Select an agent type. And then select your desired report over on the right-hand side. So if we're looking for installation, like when it installed by which job, we can do installed update report. If we're looking for failures, I could do update failure report. So here's where I can find that information about when they installed and which patches failed.
Well, we have no failed patches there, so that one's not the best example. Let's look at installed update report. that's what our report will look like if we did have information there. All right.
That was the only question we had so far.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? As I did mention, if for anybody that is wanting to get more in depth into patching, we are on November 3rd going to have a patching webinar as well. So if you want to go on over to the university and check out the calendar again, you can register for the November 3rd webinar, which is going to be patching in ConnectWise RMM. It will be kind of similar in the beginning to how this presentation is as far as setting up a patching policy and creating a package for it. However, we will be reviewing more in depth the patching policy and the different approval settings that we go through for approving and not approving patches, what ConnectWise RMM automatically approves or what's approved by our team, because in ConnectWise RMM, all of the security updates do go through our NOC team. They decide what gets approved, or they basically vet all those patches to make sure they're good. They go ahead and approve them, and then those patches will automatically get deployed if you have your policy set up for that. Other patches, such as just critical updates or regular updates, will need to go through your approval. So that is something that you can set up, but we'll get more in depth to that on November 3rd. Okay, Scotty, do we have any more questions?
We do have a new question here asking, how does RMM Audit work? I'm not sure I understand that question. Can you chime in and shed some light on that for us?
I'm not sure I understand that question either. Is there any more detail on that?
That is the entire question at this point. RMM Audit is for audit reporting.
Audit reporting. Are we talking about auditing the users or user actions in RMM? What are we auditing here?
Yes, all users. Auditing users.
Okay. I haven't had to do any of the audit reports in RMM myself. Have you ever had any experience with that, Scotty?
I'm afraid I do not have any experience with it either.
Okay. Let's see if we can take a look here. So I did go to our report section, and I have expanded the audit side here. And it looks like we do have a few reports here out of the box for remote access report, product usage report, and user login report. Let's take a look at the user. Yeah, let's look at user login. Let's see what that
That
gets
does
us.
show that description there. Audit user activity on the ITS, on the IT support portal. So yeah, it seems to be what we're looking for.
I'll just look between yesterday and
Got to
today.
select a user from the drop-down. All users. Let's do all
Let's look at
users.
myself here.
All right.
And there we go. User, email ID. That's not my actual email, so don't try to write me there. And the login dates and times that I have there. Let's see, it does look like we do have an all users option as well. So between yesterday and today, Scotty and myself have been in the system. So from the reports home, looks like we can go and use those reports there. How this all works under the hood, I don't have the details on that. If you want to get more info, maybe we might be able to talk with our other colleagues. You can email education@connectwise.com if you want to know more info of maybe how that works on the back end or under the hood. We could probably get some information there. Sometimes it is hard for us to get that information too, keep in mind, but we can do our best to try to get you more info on user auditing if you want to know a little bit more behind that. As far as where you find that and how you get to it in the system, it's just under the reports, and we do have some out-of-the-box reports here. So again, that email is education@connectwise.com. So that's for anybody else if they did not have time or weren't able to think of a question today to get into us, you can email us there and we can get that question answered for you. Because I know it always happens, even with myself, when I'm watching a presentation or someone talking about something, and then I'm thinking about it later on, I'm going, man, that would have been a great question to ask this person. No, it's too late now, I can't ask them. Again, education@connectwise.com, and you can get that question posted to us about ConnectWise RMM. Is there any more questions, Scotty?
At this time, Notco, we do not have any additional questions.
Okay. Then I would like to thank everyone for coming today to today's webinar. I don't know what happened there to the thank you. It has gone missing. So thank you everybody for attending today's session. Again, if you have a question and you think about it later on, oh, I should ask that, education@connectwise.com, and the question will come into the team. So you not only get myself, you get Scotty, and you get our other Otter Bros to look at that question, and we can get that answered for you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Love you.